Hey, it's Thursday night, folks, here on the Miami channel at the Voice of College Football. So, you know what that means. We got the Wholesome One to ourselves tonight. That's a good thing. Good to see the Wholesome One each and every time. Check out his YouTube channel, Wholesome One Holloway, if you haven't already. And if you haven't, I don't know what's going on there, but you got to get on over there, check out the Wholesome's work. But we are so appreciative and blessed to have him every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. For any kind of delay, we will promise it will be worth it. All right, Wholesome One, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. We're officially in the off season, and this is kind of where we really put in a lot of work. Our views have a drastic hit. Our subscriptions have a drastic hit. But those of us that love this sport and care about it and cover it in the media, man, we push on for the next couple of weeks because guess what? Mid-February, early March, you start to hear about your spring ball, and then you get another spike, and so we're in that right now. And spring ball is around the corner, and for those of us that played it or in the coaching, man, spring ball is where you really start to win for the fall and for the new year. It's really what's done January through June before we even put pads on and really get into it for fall camp.
Absolutely. We have just made our way through most of the recruiting season. Of course, National Signing Day number 2
Mhm.
is next Wednesday, February 1st. I heard a statistic here in the last few days that we're up to 90+% that have already signed out of the top 100 players. I do know this 96 have signed out of the top
Wow.
100. Uh, I'm guessing this is about the fourth year of the early signing period. That would
Mhm.
that would be
I
my
think it was
best
a
guess.
2019 thing. So
Yeah,
yeah,
so
4 years.
19, 20, 21, 22. This might be our fifth. I know that right out of the gate, it was 85% signed in December, and it's just creeped up each and every year. So there's still obviously 4 elite athletes out there, still have yet to sign. And even beyond that, in the top 3 to 400, 10, 15 players still out there. But something we started to talk about before we started to go live here is obviously we got some early enrollees on campus.
Mhm.
Um, and this is right about the time that they get their first taste of big time college football, winter workouts for some of those teams that had bowl practices. Uh, that's something that you see more and more teams across the nation able to get those athletes through their last classes of high school, get them graduated, get them enrolled and able to participate in bowl practices. But by winter workouts, all those early enrollees, and that number increases each and every year for everybody, goes up. And we're at that time where those guys that have been so highly anticipated by the fan base to see the new guys get their first taste of what it's like to take that major leap.
Yeah, and it's super exciting, man. It's something that I wish I had the opportunity to be a part of, but that's usually reserved for your FBS, FCS, NAI, and down. It's a little harder to get that going, but it's possible, and it has happened. But it's a lot more of a FBS kind of thing. And I've seen so many young men over the last couple of, I would say, early enrollment. Would you say, Mark, maybe a decade to maybe 13 years, 2010, 2011, somewhere in there? Well, Miami never used to do that. Well, the Miami administration would always work like against the Miami football program. And we used to run into this problem of could they even get into Miami? So many good players. We were like, could they get in? Could they get in? Or the excuse the fans would use if we didn't land him, he couldn't get into Miami. Academics first, student athlete, blah, blah, blah. Now they're on board. We work hand in hand. Young men who get an offer from the University of Miami as early as sophomores or juniors understand the academic prestige and what they have to keep and maintain to be able to get into the school. So they have that conversation early on in the recruiting process, regardless of coach. And the way that this early enrollment stuff has gone, it's a great thing where a young man comes in at 5'9, 5'10, 160, 165 pounds. By June, could be pushing 180 if that's what is desired. Now it happens irregardless. Sometimes you're freshman 15, freshman 20, but there's sometimes where a guy like Greg Rousseau over a full calendar year can go from 205 to 270. And it's just like, oh man. Oh, but that's what happens with the strength and condition and nutrition and the way that it's going right now and the way the consistent lifting. You have your personal lift, you have your private lift, you have your lift with your like a whole team comes in for a team lift. Then you have sometimes they go in as just position groups, like, hey, the defensive line is meeting Wednesdays at 3 p.m. because it fits everyone's schedule to come in and lift as a position group. Now that's separate from the 5 a.m. morning lift that the entire team is doing. After that, at 3 p.m., you have your 4 p.m. conditioning with just defensive line and just the nutrition staff and just the conditioning staff. So all these kinds of things are happening, and there's been this big influx of just attention to detail, and more specifically, when it comes to strength and conditioning. I tell a story all the time about Duke Johnson. I mean, Duke Johnson was out here playing at 170 pounds as a freshman, and he didn't get a chance to early enroll. If things were where they are today, especially at Miami, he might have been 180, 190 by a sophomore. He didn't get there until his junior year, which happened to be his last year at the University of Miami because he also ran track and things of that nature. So there's a stigma about young men just coming in and magically turning, or if they're a 210-pound edge rusher, they'll be 260 by June. If that is what is desired by the position coach in the scheme to set with. There's some young men who eat themselves into a three technique and they may have come in as a strong side defensive end. There's other instances where, you were an outside speedster well, not really a speedster. Let's say you're 6'4" on the outside, you turn into being just a big slot because you get over 220. So these things happen. The biggest thing that I love about it is that Miami has joined the party in early enrollees. And that's really what I want to pick your brain about because early enrollees used to be, there was a stigma about early enrollment where it's like, oh, well, we're only going to allow the young man that needs to gain weight or the quarterback or maybe the future left tackle. But now, or the guys that just needed a whole bunch of work. You bring them in, your 3 stars, your 2 stars, you bring them in early because when summer session A and summer session B comes and those 4 and 5 star guys walk in, they're ready to go. But now it's like, nah, I don't care if Joey Bosa signs to us. If he has the ability to graduate early, we would love for him to early enroll and be a part of our program, and we go from there. So what have you seen with the influx of that? And do you think it's a good thing and blah 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 when it comes to early enrollment with young men?
The couple things that come to mind first and foremost would be, and while you started to address this, I Googled around and I tried to find when early enrollment for college football started. Couldn't find anything. So
Okay.
anyway, when you tabbed it at 8, 10, 12 years in that range, that's my best recollection of when it really started to ramp up. The first thing I remember is some of the SEC powers, LSU, Alabama, Georgia, they seem to be the ones that were on the forefront of getting those guys in early and seeing 5, 6, 7, 8 players out of a class of 22 to 25 early enrollees when everybody else had no one or 1 or 2 or 3. I don't know if you went across the country now and we took count of early enrollees that you'd really be able to see much of a difference between the elite powers and the best programs in the country versus everybody else. I think I'm going to guess around that 8 to 12 number
Mm-hmm.
is pretty standard out of a class of 20 to 25. Uh, Now, how many times do we get into these kind of conversations? Do I make this comment? I would love if somebody who had the time and the expertise to go through all the classes, go through the early enrollees and compare their production as freshmen and then throughout the rest of their career versus the regular enrollees and see if they could find any kind of trends to determine, does this actually
Even help? Is it
help?
just yeah, yeah,
My
yeah,
guess, I think it helps.
100%. And I think it's mainly Mark. The biggest thing that we try to stress to young men, and you've been a part of it when you were a freshman in college, and so was I. Um, the time management and the freedom. Okay, now as a regular student, there's a lot more freedom. You're telling me I don't have to go to class? Those loans come out 8 years from now, right? I don't have to worry about it. Oh man, party? You said? Who's staying over to whose dorm past midnight? We got an 8 a.m. It happens. Well, when it comes to the young men as athletes, right? They have to try to manage all this. And we've gone through this story before. You got a 5 a.m. lift, right? Start at 5 a.m. That means you have to be there. Your first alarm may go off at 3:50 or 4 o'clock because you might want to get up and you want to get a stretch in. You're so excited. You're just glowing. You couldn't even sleep the night before. And you also have class. Now, remember, as an early enrollee, you're in the spring semester. This isn't just summer training camp where it's just football. So you're jumping in halfway through the year to start a new semester. And the beautiful part is you get an opportunity to meet up with other freshmen who have already done the fall semester, other students. And the fact that we have study hall and things of that nature lined up for the young men, these are things that as a 17, 18, maybe 19, if you're an older freshman, where you get in and you get a routine. You got your morning lift, you got your morning routine, you got your morning lift, you have your 8 a.m. classes, you have your afternoon meetings, you have an afternoon lift, which will be replaced with the practice later on once they start official spring ball. You have your evening meetings, your evening meals, your milkshakes, and then you have your personal time. Now, that personal time may only be an hour or 2 hours where you get a chance to call your mom, call your dad, talk to some of your coaches, talk to the girlfriend, blah, blah, blah. Let them know how you're doing. I'm okay. Take pictures. Everybody wants to see pictures. So you got to take pictures and they want to see how much you're growing and what's happening with that. And this is all time management because you're still gonna have to have time for just you where you take a break. Maybe you like to play video games. Maybe you're a geek. You like to read. Maybe you want to get um, homework done early. All these things. And when you get a chance to get a real pattern at that early of an age, you're able to get it going for 6 months before everyone else hops in, and then you could be somewhat of a leader for the summer A and session B enrollees and say, hey, when you get to the fall semester comes around, you got to make sure you're already in a set schedule. You already have a set because footballs, you're going to be sore, sad. You wonder why you're not on a depth chart. All these kinds of things are going to happen that's going to be coming at you while you still have to maintain academic eligibility. You still have to maintain weight. You still have to go to all these meetings. You still got to show up and give 110%. You can't hang out in the training room if you actually want to play. So all these things, you're getting pulled in so many different directions. And if you have the opportunity to early enroll, I think it's an amazing thing for the young men to do because you get to set a precedent of who and what you want to be. And a lot of it is just mental. How can you handle all these things? You have a 10-page paper due, but you also have to do this defensive assignment that you have to turn in by midnight. They're both due at midnight. Which one are you going to get done first? Which one are you going to have enough time to get this done and answer these defensive questions? If they come out in 21 personnel, that we call this. If they come out in 3x1, that we call that. Do you call another player and see if he answered it right? Do you talk to the chick in class to see if she can help you with your essay? All these you have to be able to, and this helps us later on in life with life managing skills. But biggest thing to get to learn is to create that schedule and to create the time management early on.
Because otherwise, they're coming fast up on a football season and doing all those things and figuring out all those things that the guys that they're competing against, at least at the freshman level, worry about and figured out in January and February and March. And it gets all crammed up into throughout the summer. Of course, you can get on campus and start to work through some of those things. But yeah, I just think an enormous advantage for everything that you just stated that relates to everything outside of football that you can build a routine on and better focus on football, but the football too. Shoot, spring practice, winter workouts, work on your body,
Mm-hmm.
get to see what the standard is, what the expectation, what the rest of that position unit looks like,
Mm-hmm.
the competition. It's a huge advantage.
Absolutely. And Miami, we had a great opportunity, Mark, where some of our best players have already early enrolled on campus. The two highest rated recruits, Francis Marigoa and Samson Okunola, are both enrolled at Miami and in Lifton. Now, Francis Marigoa had the Polynesian Bowl, so he was he was a week late in, but of course he's one of the best players, so he was able to catch on, right? But he's on campus, enrolled, ready to go as of Monday because the Polynesian Bowl was this past week over in the homeland of Hawaii. You also have Ruben Bain, a big time edge rusher slash defensive lineman from Miami Central, 4-star recruit. He's on campus. Jaden Wayne, edge rusher, one of my favorite recruits in this upcoming cycle. He's also on campus. Riley Williams, tight end, number 4 tight end in the country, just outside the 247 top 100. He's also enrolled. So the top 5 that I just spit out to you are all close to the line of scrimmage. One of the places that Miami must make big changes here. And as you can see, Mark has gotten fancy with the computer and learned how to put it up for me. So I don't have to keep going tab to tab. Okay, scroll down for me, please, Mark. Because we talked about those 5. Okay, one more down because I need to get the next 5 in there.
Can
And
you
one
see him?
more.
I can't see what you can see because I'm working on
Oh, okay.
another.
So scroll a little bit lower. Right there. Okay. Can you go up a little bit? Okay. Can you scroll up for me?
Wait, who are you looking?
And right there. Perfect. Good job. Don't step. Perfect. Right there.
All right.
Nathaniel Ray Joseph, 5'8", 170 pounds, the light in the behind wide receiver, speedster. These are the kind of young men that we were talking about before. Guys that come in maybe 10 years ago, they would be an early enrollee. Why? Because you want that young man to get into the nutrition and the strength program. You need him, if he's going to be a contributor, to be north of 180 at, if perfect, at least 190 by opening against Bethune-Cookman to start the season. You need that. You need him to be up there because at 170 at this level, even as a Blazer, I don't know if that's enough body mass to take the pounding. Collins Achiampong, 6'7", 254-pound defensive end, defensive, 3 technique tackle guy. This is a project player. Another guy who used to, we had Ufambu Kumalu was a similar young man that came in, played for Miami about 8 years ago. He was one of those guys that we need to bring in. Al-Qadim Muhammad was one of those guys where it's just like project guy, get him on campus early, get him in the weight room. They show up at like 230. They may be north of 250 by the end of spring alone. This young man is already 250. And some people look at him as, a strong side defensive end. I look at him as one of the most athletic interior linemen, whether it's a 4-eye technique or a 3 technique. I think he just really eat things up at that level. Again, guys close to the LOS. Up next, Malik Bryant, inside linebacker slash 3-4 edge rusher, if Miami does convert to the 34. Another young man. The big importance about getting certain positions in: quarterback, free safety, center, middle linebacker. What are these positions, guys? These are cerebral positions. You want these young men in there so that they can learn the system, be able to regurgitate the system on your scout team, on your third team, on your second team, where they can spit it out, make the calls as true Mike linebackers, centers, quarterbacks, and free safeties, because they control what happens on the football field and how they can influence other players based on their calls. So it's great to get your linebacker in there because he can do what? Get those calls right. All right, Mark Kenneman. Okay, perfect. Robbie and Bobby Williams, the twins, one wide receiver, one linebacker. Again, 5'10", 185. I mean, this young man, Robbie Williams, is, I keep saying Williams, Washington. Robbie and Bobby Washington. Mark, I did an hour and a half breakdown, 2 hours. And I kept saying Robbie and Bobby Williams. I apologize to them and their family. I don't like getting people's names wrong. But anyway, the Washington twins. Okay, Robbie Washington is more like your Steve Smith. I mean, he is a bully. Okay, I could see him easily being on some Xavier Restrepo 200-pound slot kind of guy. That's the way he plays. Now, Bobby, whew, my unsung athlete, 6'3", 215. Get him at 230, 220, 225, somewhere in there. Long, wiry frame, physical. I think could contribute if we continue with the 4-2-5. Look, he could be a Mike. If we switch to the 3-4, he could be a strong side outside linebacker. Very good at the point of attack. Also, another linebacker as far as making the calls. What's one of the other positions we talked about? Quarterback. Our lone quarterback signee, Emory Williams, is also enrolled and on campus. So now we're drifting into a couple of the project guys. We saw some of those elite guys at the top, some of those 4 stars in the middle, and now the bottom 15, the bottom 5 or 6, because we enrolled 15. The bottom 5, we're getting into those guys where everything is super important to them. Every single rep is important. Every single snap is important. Every single meeting, because they are the ones that are quote unquote lower recruits. They need all those things to catch up and to really be on par and to really help contribute if you want them to contribute for you in 2023. So it's great. It's great to see guys like Jackson Carver, very physical blocking tight end in there. Antonio Tripp, okay, interior offensive lineman, center prospect. Caleb Spencer, your outside linebacker, strong safety prospect. And then the lone punter, special teamer that we signed, Dylan Joyce, is there also. So these things are really big, man. And I love the fact that we got a solid 15 out of, we got 15 that we signed, 15 enrolled. The other 10 signed letters of intent. Now, some of these guys I would have loved to have seen. For me, I would take all 20. All 25 could be early enrollees for me. But another thing that comes into a situation, you see some private schools on here. Private schools have their own set of ordeals. St. Thomas Aquinas, American Heritage, Pace, Antioch over in California. These places have their where you must finish through because there is a religious course or some course that you must take that's only available in your summer spring semester. So young men have to stay and make sure that they complete those courses. Think back to Brad Kaya not being an early enrollee. Why? Because he was a private school young man from California. They didn't allow him to early enrollee. Sam Bruce, God bless him, bless his soul, from St. Thomas Aquinas, did not get a chance to early enrollee because he played at St. Thomas Aquinas. Michael Irvin II. Okay, so those are examples of private schools that forced him to stay back. Bishop Gorman, things of that nature, when it comes to the religious aspects. So it really piles up, Mark. You get a chance to get year after year after year, class after class after class. Think about that, Mark. That's an extra 6 months of lifting, weight training, learning the scheme, nutrition that you get a head start on. And if you start to do that with your best players over and over and over and over and over years down the line, that's what some of these St. Thomas, Georgia, Bama, where they just got guys that are redshirt freshmen that you're seeing out there, and there's no big drop off. You see, Georgia puts their second team out here, of guys, and then, whoa, man, what? He's 19, you sure? It's because these young men get a chance to get into these programs. They get to lift. They get to play with confidence because they know that they know that they know that they have been prepared. And early enrollment is something that really helps with that.
Yeah, 15 is a really good number. I'm just going to throw Bama in there. And let's see what we got. Again, I think that for these top programs that the numbers used to be a lot more than everybody else. But you know what Bama's number is? 24 early
They
enrollees.
got 24 early enrollees.
24.
That's beautiful.
They
That's where
only
hey,
have
Mark,
4
that's how you do it.
signed letters of intent left.
That's how you do it.
Wow.
You get them in, but the other thing is you can't just create scholarships out of thin air. So they're putting so many people into the NFL or early enroll in early entries to the NFL draft that now they have open spots. They have transfers out, which has open spots for scholarships, which you can bring in more people. You can sign more than the allotted 25 because of that. So I mean, they have a great system, and if you were to look back, I don't know if it will allow you to see, but maybe class of 2022, they probably still had 20 early enrollees then too. They probably had 20 early enrollees in 21.
Yeah.
That's how it is done.
Yeah, Georgia's got 18. So with those 18, Georgia only has another 7 that are going to come in later.
Mm-hmm. And again, that's just how it is, how it works. Is how that you get things really going. Again, for your young men. Next subjects. I know we got like 10 minutes left here, and then we got, if that, 5 minutes or so.
Well, what people seem to be, were you going to bring something up?
Yep.
Okay, go right ahead.
I want to know your viewpoint on this, Mark. 5-7 season. Top 10 recruiting class. Just months after getting blown out by Tallahassee and Duke and Clemson and a bunch of people on your schedule. Middle Tennessee State. What does this say about Coach Cristobal and his staff? Well, mostly him, because that's who recruits the top-notch dogs, is Coach Cristobal. So we'll say, what does that say about Coach Cristobal being able to still land some of these top-tier local recruits and national recruits off of a 5-7 team, in your opinion? What does that say about him?
The first thing that comes to mind is the description of what a salesperson is. And the reason I bring that up is if I went to go be a salesperson tomorrow, there'd be certain skills that I could bring to the table. I can be friendly, I can introduce a product, I can small talk, I can, work into a conversation, I can explain the product. I have certain skills that I would be able to fit into a sales person's job immediately. But the best salespeople know how to close. I don't have that skill. I don't know how to do it. I've never done it before. And they say that there's all sorts of people that are really good persons, and they have the skills to talk and to present and do all those things, but they don't know how to close. And there's a unique skill set to closing. And I got to think that he knows how to close.
Mm. Mm. I like that. I like that view. Some people have the take that he hops. I mean, he's talking to sophomores now. They say that Coach Cristobal has just such a great relentless relationship building so early that it's so hard for other coaches to catch up. And by the time that those coaches catch up, he has already built such a great relationship that he, like you said, can close it and finish it. And in the midnight hour, they've been pushing. Let's say they're going at it for a safety recruit, or let's say offensive tackle. something that Coach Cristobal is great at landing in his whole entire time, play the position. Well, Francis Marigoa said USC came calling all the way up until he put pen to paper. But he had already built such a great relationship with Joe Salavea, of course, from the same island. You also have Coach Mirabal, his position coach, and Coach Cristobal, his co-position coach, that no matter what happened, uh, who came calling or how much money, well, I don't know. Somebody throws 8 million at somebody, it might be a different conversation. But what I'm saying is you built up such a rapport with someone that it's really hard for them to turn away from it. Now, in instances like Cormani McClain, we've seen it happen where he bragged about how much he loved Coach Cristobal. He loved DeMarcus Van Dyke, our defensive analyst. He liked the scheme. He couldn't wait to come to Miami. And when it was time, he chose Colorado. Good on to him. What I'm saying is, I like it. Of course, we all want to see the wins happen. And again, I don't think Miami wins more than 6 or 7 games this upcoming year anyway. It's just still a bunch of building that has to be done. And we're going to be very young at some key positions. And not to create excuses this early on, but um, I think it's just a harsh reality of where we are, okay, and who we are at Miami.
I do think that obviously we saw Dion go to Jackson State first and foremost, and he brings in arguably the best player in the country, Travis Hunter, and then he follows Dion to Colorado, and then
Mhm.
Dion's able to reel in Cormani McClain. So I think that's a very unique situation where you have one of the great cornerbacks in history is now a head coach, and he's going to attract that position. Not that he's not going to attract other positions, but first and foremost, he's going to attract that position with the allure of I I can train you to be a first round pick in the NFL.
Yeah, and it's very similar. I mean, I don't know if Neon Dion might have been the greatest athlete ever, as far as could do almost anything. I hear he had a killer 3-point shot too, but he just didn't want to play basketball. But some people have hate in their heart about that situation. It would be like as if I'm, my favorite player of all time. The reason why I wore 52 is Ray Lewis. If I happen to be on a team or being recruited, and Ray Lewis was going to be because I don't think he would be let's say he's the DC. He's DC in conditioning coach and motivation. I'm probably going to go there. Why? Because that's my favorite player. He'd directly be able to influence me. And of course, Coach Prime is one of the greatest to ever do it. And again, tip your cap. If we lost to Alabama, again, you'd be upset, but you tip your cap. It's not like you lost it to an in-state rival and you beat out Florida for them initially for the commitment. So it is what it is. But I bring that up because I just want to just gauge. I mean, I know Miami is so far away from being in the Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan conversation. We're years away from even being in the Clemson, Tennessee conversation. That's like tier 1.5, tier 2. Miami's a tier 4, tier 3 if we're doing out of the top 5, and it takes time to get there. Of course, the portal and elite recruiting helps, but it's still going to have to come down to coordinators, relationships between the coordinators and the players, and being able to rack up wins.
I asked this question to Cam last night or maybe last week, and I'd love to get your take on it. And I want to be able to phrase this the right way. So we know Mario Cristobal's calling card is recruiting. We also know that he's won a lot of games as a head coach, specifically at Oregon. Uh, Made it to 2 Pac 12 championship games, won a Rose Bowl, won plenty of games there. We also know that there is a certain knock against him as an in game coach,
Mm-hmm.
whether that's both preparing the team for a big game and then being able to make those in game adjustments
Mm-hmm.
and a combination of those things. So let's say we get 2 to 3 years down the road and you are overjoyed with everything Mario Cristobal has done as a program builder in every such way. And However, there are more than every coach is going to make mistakes. It doesn't go perfectly for anyone, regardless of how good they are as a tactician. But there are more than acceptable numbers of mistakes made and just trends of, bad second halves. Again, if it happens once or twice, okay, the team collapsed in the second half, you can make all sorts of assessments on what happened. But if it becomes like a regular thing, like, okay, they went 8-4 this year, and 3 of the 4 losses they had a lead at halftime and they blew it and they just got trounced in the second half. If you're seeing game management, game preparation, everything to do with on-field coaching not being what it should be and lagging behind everything else that is the role of a head coach in building the program. How do I put it? If everything you've seen to date continues, and I may be off in regards to your assessment of where he is as a game coach, do you think that there is going to be a place for some type of assistance there? Time management, game management, all of those things.
Well, absolutely. I mean, people self-evaluate no matter what. Now, being able to self-evaluate and then do something about it after you self-evaluate is a separate thing. Word has been out about him as far as an in-game coach and being boneheaded, and we saw that this previous year. Just punt the ball, just kick the ball. There's times where I feel like you might win a couple, you might be at a bowl if you just kick the damn ball a couple times. But of course, you have to be able to have with a coach that's so stern and strict in certain ways. You have to have someone that can look him in the eye and be honest with him and bring some of these things up and come up with a solution. Just complaining about something or bringing something up just to take jabs at somebody, it doesn't help you get anywhere. And I think that's why you have somebody like Alonzo Highsmith, who is our like GM of football operations, where they are personal friends and they also understand business. And I think that it's a little different from Ed Reed, who was a chief of staff, which was supposed to be kind of in between the players and the coaches and being able to be like that uncle or like big brother that you can go to and complain about stuff and then could try to explain what coach means by saying this. And Highsmith is just all about talent acquisition, program and organization building, and so is Coach Cristobal. Now, when it comes to on the field game, so you have to have somebody that's going to look him in the eye and say, "Man, you got to chill. You're overdoing it. Punt the football. Stop going for it on fourth down. Let the offensive coordinator be the offensive coordinator. Don't tell him to run the football. Run the football. Step away and let him coach. Let him do his thing. Let him build his chemistry. Let him get into a flow. These are kinds of things that we observe, and it's so easy to judge from the outside in. But there also comes a point where when you turn on the film, you continuously see something in certain scenarios happen. And then you see sometimes where you really see him trying not to be that guy and not to go there, but it's just who he is. An example would be the Virginia game. Miami could have ended that in regulation if they took a shot to the end zone. But he knew his kicker was on fire. And instead of lose the game with a bonehead interception to one of the worst teams in college football, let's just keep running the ball. And wherever you want the ball at, Andy, kick it. Just like that. And that's the difference you saw in that as opposed to you saw against A&M where we're going for it on fourth down, or against Middle Tennessee State, or against North Carolina, where there were times where, man, just take 3 right there and it's a different situation. Okay, it's a different outlook. So you saw him in certain instances trying, and I don't know if it was just because Coach Cristobal himself or if somebody else is in that headset, or maybe Coach Mirabal, his best friend, is letting him know, man, just trust your players or trust your staff. And again, I don't know if you're asking would we call for his head if nothing changes. I don't know if that's where you were getting at with your
No, just
question.
more about help.
Yeah. And again, the way these things expand, there's grad assistants, there's student assistants, there's now general managers of college football. I mean, there's so many different. It's an army of people who all help, and I could see in a couple years where you might have a coach that's literally designated to watch the clock. You might have a coach that's or a student assistant that's designated to say, uh, going a timeout right here could throw off their flow. Hey, they've got 3 straight first downs. Let's call a timeout right here, coach. Now, whether he listens to them or not, that's probably their job. Just like Mark, 10 years ago, there was no such thing as a get back coach. Now, a get back coach for the guys on the sideline has always been around, but a get back coach for the defensive coordinator that's damn near on the field trying to, and they got to pull them back, hand on the belt loop and pull them back. So there'll be times if people want to invest in the right things, and that's self-evaluation and growth of yourself, you're willing to look into those things and see how to get them fixed. Not just get them right, not just complain about it, but how to get them fixed.
I watched a video last night. I was actually watching this NFL playoff game. It was wild card weekend, and it was one of these deals where I'm doing 3 other things. So I'm watching the game, but I'm not watching every play and trying to process every game situation. I just have it on. And
Right.
I thought I saw what I saw, and then I actually saw a video posted by some NFL channel on YouTube about this situation. The Baltimore Ravens, in their loss to Cincinnati a couple weeks ago in the wild card game, they had the ball with 3 minutes and 19 seconds left on their final drive. An eternity. And they had timeouts. They had at least 2 timeouts. 3:19 on the clock. And they mismanaged that so badly that they were rushed for time at the, in the red zone.
Oh yeah, that's my team, so I know I watched it. Mm-hmm.
I remember way back, this was about 15 years ago, I'm watching a Jets. Ironically, I think it was a Ravens game, but it was the Jets that with Herm Edwards. And, they had to score a touchdown maybe to win, and they crossed midfield. They crossed midfield with almost 5 minutes left in the game. And then within just a few more plays, I could tell, like, what are they doing? They're going to run, like they ran out of time. It was unbelievable. Like it's almost impossible to try to do. And they still pulled it off.
Oh yeah. We had times like that with Coach Cristobal too, where we're going in at the halftime, and man, for some weird reason, we have all 3 timeouts. And maybe I just have been around different coaches, but I've always heard, in high school and in college, there was a basketball approach to, if you're carving up my defense, I'm not going to let you go straight down the field 8 of 8 for 79 yards and score a touchdown. I'm going to give a timeout in between it and say, DC, get it right. What's going on out here? There's times we're getting bombed over the top, and Cam Kitchens is talking to somebody, and the corner ain't even looking at them. And Al Blaze is trying to talk to the linebacker, and they're not, and there's no communication. And they get to the sideline and sit down. They don't even talk to each other. They don't say nothing to each other. So again, Coach Cristobal will always be the face of it, and it will fall on him. But there's a lot of stuff that I think he could work on and get better. One of the other things is he's known as like a QB ruiner, if that's a term, where quarterbacks go there and they have drop-offs under him. I think Justin Herbert had some of his best years under Coach Cristobal, but people want to say what they want to say. So, and the jury will always be out. Coach Cristobal can win a national championship next year. Somebody's going to have something to say. Or he went 5-7. Or he sucked at FIU, or he didn't really build Oregon. Oregon was already built. He just came in after a bad season. They're always going to have something to say. The best thing you could do is keep winning, keep working, and keep building.
I personally would have to see more out of the quarterback position and see those type of situations continue. We pretty much have, if I'm reading this correctly, we've got Justin Herbert, who has turned into a top 5 to 10 quarterback in the NFL, something in that range. And at Oregon, didn't have remarkable statistics, but he obviously did enough right there to be the 5th or 6th pick in the draft. So read that however you want. Anthony Brown had a pretty bad season his final year uh, at Oregon. That would have been in 2021. And I kind of lost track of him, but I had heard that he was getting decent reviews as a backup quarterback in the NFL. I don't know who he's with. And then your latest example would be Tyler Van Dyke, who, of course, had a big season in 21 and then not such a big season last year.
Right. So there's been that debate about it, and I try not to even really bring it up or give a shine light on it because I don't think that it's necessarily fair. I just think that Miami fans or people who like to hate on Miami and want to throw dirt on Coach Cristobal would say, just look at the stats, compare the stats. Two different schemes, two different ways of getting it done, two different ways of really attacking defenses. And Tyler really clicked with SMU's head coach, Rhett Lashley, who believed in him when he was like the lowest rated quarterback in the room and turns out to be the guy that wins the job and takes off and does very, very well in that scheme. And it's well known that the offensive players at Miami did not believe in Coach Josh Jadish's scheme, did not believe in his route running combinations. And to that point, a lot of them departed. And the other thing is, who knows if Coach Josh Gaddis is still here? The last time I was on here, I said that we would talk about whether Kamani McLean committed to Miami and is going to be a Cane or if he goes somewhere else. We'll see. The next time I see you, we might be talking about who the new OC at Miami is, or if Coach Cristobal told all the fans to shut up and trust his system. Who knows? I do understand that you keep throwing a bunch of five-star offensive linemen at something, and then eventually it'll pop. Will Miami fans give Coach Cristobal 2-3 years to build that great wall of Miami? Who knows? But I tell you what, adding Okulola and adding Francis Marigoa, who I think Francis is your starting right guard, and I think Okulola is in conversation for your right tackle, or maybe even left tackle conversation. Yeah, it's going to start to help some things. You might be able to dive right behind Francis Marigoa, unlike you were able to do behind DJ Scaife, with all due disrespect to DJ Scaife and his abilities. Don't know if there'll be a big difference in what happens when 24 dive is called. Okay. And we can't wait to see it. We love to see it.
Larry here says Big Ten type of system won't work in the ACC. Now, before we cut you loose here, Wholesome One, I think one thing that gets completely overblown is that people automatically tie updated offense to throwing the ball a lot and outdated offense to running the ball more than you pass it.
Right.
Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss is running the football more than anybody in the SEC. That's not what he's known for.
Anybody in the country behind the two service academies.
And if you ask your average college football fan about Lane Kiffin and what he's known for, what would they say? Throw the ball, throw the ball, throw the ball, throw the ball.
The last 2 years, he's been in the top 5 of rushing back-to-back years.
I looked up Ohio State's numbers a few days ago because of this same conversation. They were second or third in they were top 3 in everything across the board in terms of offensive performance. They threw the ball, and so was Tennessee. Tennessee and Ohio State were pretty much across the board. Any meaningful offensive stat, they were 1, 2, 3 in that range. They threw the ball. Tennessee and Ohio State, I think, had the 50th and 70th most pass attempts in the country.
Really? So that means that they didn't really. So it's saying they didn't throw it as much as people think. Is
Yep.
what you're saying.
Yeah.
Wow,
I'll I'm gonna look it up again.
interesting. Because I mean, the way we think about quarterbacks, and especially in Ryan Day's system now, under Urban Meyer's system, I definitely would understand the fact that they run that ball and hit people in the mouth and strong minded. But
Yeah, some of the teams, Wholesome one that threw the most passes in the country last year, not going to surprise anyone. Number one, Mike Leach, Mississippi State. Of course, Will Rogers. Number four, Purdue. Jeff Brom loves to throw the ball. That's not going to surprise anyone. Michael Penix, number five at Washington. Drake May, North Carolina. They were seventh. Caleb Williams, USC, number nine. All right, I'm going to go all the way down to, see if I can find Tennessee, number 52. Ohio State, number 62.
that
Pass
is
attempts
still
this year.
so hard to believe. Well, I mean, yeah, that's hard to believe, man, because you would think CJ Stroud was just airing that thing out. But Jermaine Sims brings up a great point. If your offensive line is subpar, you can't win in the trenches no matter what offense you run. Okay. Now, Larry, I think you bring up a great point as far as the traditional Big Ten. But if you watch Big Ten nowadays, maybe your Iowa and your Minnesotas are still old schoolish, but you got Ohio State or Michigan, of course, Michigan. But it's like the traditional viewpoint of a Big Ten, SEC. Everyone is very multiple. We're playing situational ball. Okay, now some situations where you're still down by 2 touchdowns, you still run the ball. That's just because you feel like you got the best O line and the best running backs. And Georgia 2018, the thing, and run the ball to 48 points and over 500 total yards. But there's times where you turn on Illinois and Nebraska, and they're both in like air raid 3 wide, and you're wondering, is this Big Ten Network or did I hit the wrong channel? Because they both were in full shotgun and airing the ball out. Okay, so and Nebraska's traditional old school triple option, run the ball down your throat kind of team, physical team. Now, a little bit more of that air it out and try to take all the air out of the ball. So it's just about what, to me, Mark, schemes, dime a dozen. What can you recruit to and what can you execute at a high level? Okay. Georgia showed in the TCU game, and that's championship. Uh, they can air it out too, just like they can run it right down your throat. It's what can you recruit to and what can you execute to a point where you just, now you get to the point with Georgia, we just had the best team. We just line up and they could have ran a triple option and blew TCU off the ball. Appreciate you, man. Thank you. One day, one day, one day, one day. It's the ultimate goal. It's the ultimate goal. But one day, man. But again, run the football, throw the football, play action the football, ace check the football, kick return, punt return. What can you do well, and what can you and your young men and this staff execute at the highest level? That's your question.
Tennessee and Ohio State had the two best pass efficiency ratings in the country. So their consistency and their explosiveness, but they didn't throw it a lot compared to everybody else in the country. Michigan's 23rd in the country in pass efficiency. So there's only 3 teams in the ACC that threw it better statistically. Now, these are just stats, but threw it better than Michigan, North Carolina, Florida State, and Wake.
Yeah. And a lot of those things come down with the efficiency of when do you call these things, the connection between them. I mean, there could be a point where Georgia Tech, if you go back when they were running that triple option, probably had a really high pass efficiency because when they did pass, it would be for big yardage, wide open because they had been running the ball the whole game and they dialed up a hand it off to him, hand it off to him, hand it off to him, throw a bomb. And it popped off for him sometimes, So again, a lot of work to do. you see what Coach Cristobal is doing. He's building this thing from the inside out. Offensive lineman early enrollees, high recruit. Defensive line early enrollees, high recruits. Linebacker early enrollee, high recruit. Of course, at Miami, you would think geographically we can go out and find 3-star, 4-star, 5-star wide receivers, 3-star, 4-star, 5-star quarterbacks, 3-star, 4-star safeties, and running backs. What we have proven to not be able to do is not only recruit, not only get the commitment, but to sign and develop the guys that win your games. Your quarterbacks, your offensive lines, and your defensive lines. That's where we have been very inefficient of really honing it home and getting them through and getting them pushed out into the first 2 or 3 rounds of the NFL draft at offensive line, defensive line, and quarterback. We've really been struggling in those three areas.
Our next live show is Friday at 6 Eastern with the Wholesome One's buddy, Corey Bratta from the Hawkeye of the Storm.
Hey, man, that's a good guy. Make sure you tell him thank you for the cornerback prospect. And I would like to thank him in advance if he was able to get Joshua Gaddis to get on the nearest plane out of Fort Lauderdale and land in Iowa, where I think he would have, again, I've said plenty of times, Penn State, but Franklin ain't giving up that job. He would do really well there. He would do well at Minnesota because they're doing so well on the offensive line up front. And Iowa, his scheme is very dependent on being able to reset that line of scrimmage and pass if we need to, but really own and run the ball with tight ends and offensive lines. And Miami is still at least a year away from being able to do that. And he's only on a 2-year contract. The first one was absolutely horrible. So this year, hey, man, sign that contract to Iowa, go blow guys off the ball, and, beat the Cyclones to open up the season. You'll be all right.
I don't want to pin you down on this if you haven't had a chance to think about it, but let's say Gaddis does take a hike and finds another job. Do you have any idea of who you would like to see make their way to Coral Gables?
Man, the one guy I really wanted to see get a chance just left and went back to App State to be the play caller, and that was Frank Ponce. I thought his RPO pistol scheme would have worked for Coach Cristobal, but it is what it is. Ken Dorsey did not get the job with the Carolina Panthers. They went with Frank Reich, former Indianapolis Colts quarterback, former Indianapolis Colts head coach, and former quarterbacks coach of the Philadelphia Eagles when my buddy Carson Wentz was the starting quarterback there. And they had a good relationship that faltered in Indianapolis. So Ken Dorsey will be on that short list also. And because to be honest with you, Mark, I want to be able to have somebody that's going to work with Coach Cristobal, not against him. And then we're back in the same situation where it doesn't click. So I think Kenny would do very well there. I think Arroyo, I don't know Coach Arroyo's first name, but he was the offensive coordinator the first 2 seasons of 18 and 19, the first 2 years under Coach Cristobal in Oregon, and he was the offensive coordinator for Justin Herbert, and they did very well. He left to take the job at UNLV, recently was let go, so now he doesn't have a job. So I think that would also make a lot of sense. They've had success together. They've won 10 games together. They won Rose Bowl together. They put a first-round draft pick out there together, and their scheme is very pistol and run-heavy, featuring receivers and tight ends off of play action, which is what Coach Cristobal wants.
The ACC schedule release comes up next Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern time, and so we're going to go live on all the ACC-related channels, so that'll be here, Florida State, Clemson, and the main channel. So ACC schedule release, and we'll talk about it and take calls from all of you. So look out for that notification.
Heck yeah. I've been taking a little bit of a break for personal time over on my channel, so I haven't done Mario Mondays in a bit, but I'm still continuously working on just regular uploads. So Have me on notification squad also, because you never know when the H1H is going to drop something on you. I usually do live premieres. So you're able to, if you catch it live, you're able to watch it while it's premiering, and then you can go back and catch the first half of it if you haven't already. But again, chasing after my own personal goals and aspirations and personal health, and that requires time and money. So those two things I'm trying my hardest to build for me, in my path and on my journey. And I'm thankful to you all for always being there and supporting me through it all.
Folks, we appreciate the number of people that have encouraged others to hit the like button. I'm going to make this ask, and I make it frequently. Grab 2 or 3 friends, bring them back here next Thursday night. So we would love to double, triple, quadruple this audience, and we can do it with your help. So if you enjoy the content, others will as well. So grab 2 or 3 friends, blast it out on social media, let people know that we are here with the Wholesome One every Thursday, 8 o'clock Eastern time. Sometimes we're a few minutes late. That's just because we've got other commitments, and we'll be in the door by 8:15. So we will be here.
Absolutely.
Wholesome One, we appreciate you, and look forward to seeing you again.
Absolutely. It's always a pleasure and a blessing to be able to be here and talk about this program that I have quite a fond love for. And I just hope that Coach Cristobal can bring what I know deep down inside, but he has to make it a reality. It has to be manifested. And I want the other Hurricanes fans to be able to see what I see in my head, and that's him replicating what he did at Oregon, but taking it to a different level at Miami. Thank you.